This is the test corrections for chapters 13-14 test. This was taken on May 18th, 2016. Make sure to show all your work and box your answers. You don't need to show your work for multiple choice, but it'll help you for your understanding. Question number 1 tells you to simplify. Anytime it tells you to simplify, you're just looking for the math operation. In this case, it's addition. There I'm looking for things that are like terms. They're like terms with the same variable or letter and the same exponent. So n to the 5th. Those are like terms. You're just adding the coefficients, the numbers in front. That would be 3 and 7. That would give you 10n to the 5th. The next like terms are n to the 3rd powers. I put them together there, 6 and 5. Notice that the exponent does not change because you're only doing addition. And the constants, -3 and a -3 gives you -6. That would be choice B. Question number 2 also asks you to simplify. Notice in this problem you have a subtraction sign, which means you need to distribute the negative sign to each of the terms, which I've shown in the arrows. So this becomes a -11n squared, n to the 6th. That becomes a -n to the 7th, and that becomes a positive 18n. From there, I've used symbols to visually show you what is like terms. So here with the 1 squigglies, I have 4n to the 7th and a -7n to the 7th. The coefficients gives you a -3n to the 7th, which there you can eliminate b. Next I'll do to the 6 powers, so -5 and a -11 gives you -16n to the 6th. So now you're left with just C and D. Now I'm going to look at the double underlines. I have 18n and positive 10n gives you 28n. And that would be choice D. Question number 3. You have a binomial here, and there where my mouse is, that's multiplication. So if you're multiplying there, that's where we've done in class. You can use your box, or if you learned in a previous math class, you can do FOIL. FOIL only applies to a binomial times a binomial. So you're going to take r minus 7 and r plus 2. You're first going to multiply. So r times r is r squared, -7 times r is -7r. r times a positive 2 gives you 2r, and 2 times -7 gives you -14. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to add or combine like terms. Here the only things that are like terms are with the r's, so -7 and a positive 2 will give you a -5. So r squared minus 5r minus 14. And here, if you have time, you can always double check your answer. You can actually just take that and factor it, meaning using your Xbox method, and it'll look just like this. So you actually know ways of actually checking your answer now. Question number 4. You're asked to simplify here. This one has a 2 on the outside. For those who were watching the quiz, hopefully you recognize that I changed it. Before in your quiz it was b plus 7 to the 2nd power. That meant you write 2 expressions. But this one you just have a coefficient of 2, which means you just need to distribute the 2. 2 times b is 2b, and 2 times 7 is 14. You can essentially do the box method if you wanted to for that problem. Question number 5 was the same exact question from your quiz. It says simplify. Notice here there is no parentheses here nor here. That means the multiplication is only for the 8 and this with the parentheses. This 2x there just hangs out. So the first thing you'll do is you'll just distribute the 8 to the 7x, which gives you 56x. And if you distribute to the last term, that'll give you 56. Then you have that 2x there, that's like terms. So 2 and a 56 gives you 58x plus 56 is your answer. Question number 6, for those who have been trying to memorize answers from the previous quiz, all I do is I change it. Sometimes I just change the math operations, and what it does is it changes the answers. So quite a bit of students I knew try to memorize things because they just circled C, which was the answer from the previous quiz, but they didn't do their work, and that was wrong. Just take your A, B, and C value because it's already set equal to 0. If you don't know how to factor, you just take your A and your C value and put it A times C, so 1 times 6 gives you the 6. You take your b value, put it on the bottom, that's -7. You need to think of two numbers when you multiply them together equal positive 6, but add to be -7. That's -1, -6. -1 times -6 is a positive 6, and -1 plus a -6 gives you a -7. Now, you may have seen that I've done the box before, but remember when a is equal to 1, you only need to do your x. Take those two values, put it into your binomials. There it is, x minus 1, x minus 6. I guess the directions were incorrect here, but you'll know that you're solving, there's a couple of clues. It's set equal to 0, and then the second thing is that all your answers here are telling you x is equal to a value, which means that when you're solving, you're setting it equal to 0 and you're doing the zero product rule. Zero product rule means that one of these expressions has to be equal to 0. So you set each of them equal to 0. Add 1, add 6, x is equal to 1 and 6. So this is not a order pair, it is a solution set. A couple of people missed the question at the very bottom. Determine whether the function is a polynomial function. The answer is yes, it is. Notice how all of your exponents are positive numbers. There's no fractions, there's no decimals. Your coefficients could be essentially anything. So this one, pi, confused a lot of students. Pi is approximately 3.14. That means it's just a constant. So it's still a function. There were 7 multiple choice questions, so therefore that first side was out of 14 points. On the back side? Again, it asks you to simplify, and here you have multiplication. I have a binomial, which means it has 2 terms, and you have 3 terms here, so you should have a box. There's my x minus 4, and on top I have the trinomial. And you're doing the same thing we did before. You're going to multiply. X times x squared is x to the third. X times 2x is 2x squared. And x times negative 3 is negative 3x. Negative 4 times x squared is negative 4x squared. Negative 4 times 2x is negative 8x. And negative 4 times negative 3 is a positive 12. We multiplied first. Now we're going to add our combined like terms. And you'll notice something that the like terms are here are diagonals. So negative 4 and a positive 2 gives me negative 2. The x third goes there. This is a negative 11x, and this is a positive 12. If you had at least 2 of these terms correct, maybe you have a 12 and an x to the third, I gave you 3 points. If you had 1 of these correct, I gave you 1 point. I mean, an extra point, so that would be 2 points total. Question number 9 says factor completely. The first way I showed you here is that you recognize that there is a greatest common factor. 4 and 36 have a common factor of a 4. Then you have x squared minus 9. If you got there, I gave you 3 points. Here in the parentheses, you can actually factor again. So your a is 1, b is 0, and your c is negative 9. So when you do your x method, you'll see you have 3 and negative 3. And that's how you get this one. So your answer is 4 times quantity, x plus 3, x minus 3. Now, in this problem, if you set up your x method correctly, but you don't get the right answer, I give you 2 points. A lot of students did the second one because they didn't recognize the GCF, which is fine. Math is very forgiving. Here in this method, your a value, a times c, 4 times a negative 36 gives you negative 144. And your b value is still 0. The 2 numbers that multiply to be negative 144 are negative 12 and positive 12, and those 2 numbers add to be 0. So when you put it into your box, it's just a little more difficult now. That first term, 4x squared, this first one always goes in the top left of the box. Your c value always goes in the bottom right. The 2 values you found in your x, negative 12 and a positive 12, go here in the diagonals. You just add an x there. I need 2 numbers when I multiply together equal 4x squared. That'll be x and 4x. 4x times something will equal negative 12x. That's a negative 3. X times 12 will give me 12x, and 12 times negative 3 gives me negative 36. For those who are trying to find common factors, you can also do that going across. Now, you have x minus 3 and 4x plus 12, or you could have done it the other way around. You'll recognize here that in this binomial there's a GCF. If you pull out the 4, you'll get the same answer as before. So it's a lot easier if you can always question when it says factor completely, is there a greatest common factor? Can I make the number smaller or simpler? Question number 10 says solve by the quadratic formula. The first thing you should recognize that it's not set equal to 0. So anytime it says the word solve, the quadratic equation must be set equal to 0. To do that, you add 15 to both sides. You get x squared minus 6x plus 15 equals 0. you have A is 1, B is -6, C is equal to 15. Side note, if you ever move everything to the right side, it's not wrong. Your A, B, and C's will just be the opposite math operations. That doesn't matter because the two numbers you're finding are where the X intercepts. It doesn't matter if it's opening up or down in that case. If you wrote down the quadratic formula and everything else is incorrect, I gave you 2 points out of 4. The next thing you do is you're just going to do the substitutions. If B is -6, B squared is -6 there. Remember, this is -4 times your A value, and your C value is 15. And your A value is 1. So I'm doing the substitutions. I'm not doing any math operations. I'm not adding, subtracting, multiplying, nor dividing at that time. Now in the next step here, I'm going to do that. So the opposite of -6 is a +6. I have the symbols called the plus or minus. I have the radical sign. -6 squared, so -6 times -6 is a +36. And here, this is not -4. I really say it's -4 times A times C. So -4 times 1 is -4. -4 times 15 is a -60. 36 minus 60 is a -24. So if you wrote, if you did the rest of the problem and you have square root of -24, I gave you 3 points out of 4. If you made the comment that you can't have a negative here in the discriminant or underneath the radical, I gave you 4 points. If you said that there's no real solution, I also gave you 4 points. If you wrote the word that it's prime, that would be incorrect. The prime factors refers to when you're trying to factor using the Xbox method. Okay? In this case, it's just asking you to solve by the quadratic formula. Alright, question number 11. This is a sum of cubes. You know it's a sum of cubes because you have an addition sign. You only have 2 terms. One of the terms has a power of 3, a variable to the power of 3. So the very first thing you need to do in this problem is recognize that there is no greatest common factor. Then essentially what you're going to do is you're going to make these parentheses. Parentheses to the 3rd power, parentheses to the 3rd power. Now if that's the only thing you could have gotten and you did it correctly, then I gave you 2 points. Well, you have to put something in there. When you multiply by itself 3 times, you get 25y to the 3rd. That's 5y. 5y times 5y times 5y gives you 125y to the 3rd. And this value here would be 2. 2 to the 3rd power is 8. 5y becomes your A value. Your B value becomes 2. And you must memorize this formula. The formula goes A, B, A squared, AB, B squared. Then we learn about this acronym called SOAP, S-O-A-P. S stands for same sign, O stands for opposite sign, AP stands for always positive. If you wrote down the formula, you're at 2 points so far. If you made the substitution in there, your A value is 5y, your B value is 2. Here, this is where you need to be careful. A lot of students who got 3 points out of 4 made this mistake. Your A value is 5y, so you can't just put 5y as your answer. It's 5y, or the A value squared, so 5y is 25y squared. You have the opposite of A times B, so your A value is 5y and your B value is 2, so that becomes 10y or negative 10y. And your B value is 2, so 2 squared is 4, and this is your answer. I actually saw a lot of students just put the coefficients, or just the numbers. So for example, I saw some students write like 5 plus 2, 25 minus 10 plus 4. I gave students 3 points out of 4 because they forgot to recognize that your A value is a y. So you should actually have some variables in there. Question number 12. You're essentially just factoring only. You're using your X box. After you do your X box, you're putting 8 and 3 there in the diagonals. First term in the top left, C value in the top right. What do they have in common here? They have an X going in this direction, 4X, this direction 3, this direction 2, then multiplying the boxes to double check that you have that. The answer is 4X plus 3 and X plus 2. Remember, if you're doing your X method correctly, I'm giving you 2 points out of 4. Question number 3, this one says solve by factoring. When you set those binomials equal to 0, you get 1/2 and negative 4. If you factored and didn't solve, I gave you 3 out of 4, and I like going to the beach.